Welcome, everyone. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Next Step Integral and take this time to introduce you to our dear friend and new faculty member, Brooke McNamara, who's joining us in an online course that she has created, and we've been collaborating with her on, and it's called Right to the Heart of Motherhood. And it's starting in a week, March 4th. So before we start, I'd like to give you a little bit of a sense of who she is, and then you'll have the delight of actually meeting her through our chat here. So Brooke has been writing, I think, since she's a child, in an inspired way, in a sense where it creates deeper meaning in her life. She has done a lot of dance also. So professionally, she holds a BA in dance and English from Connecticut College, and then she also graduated in dance from the University of Colorado Boulder. And she's been on the faculty at Naropa University in the Yoga Studies department, where she's been teaching for the past 6 years. She also practices meditation in the Zen tradition for the past 8 years, quite intensively. And she has a wonderful husband, Rob, and 2, she calls them adorable wild sons, and lives in Boulder, Colorado. So I want to welcome you from the wholeness of my heart, Brooke. It's been so fun collaborating with you on this course that you're putting together. And I look forward to jumping right in and giving our listeners just a fuller sense of 2 things, really. One, about the course. And then as we're speaking, I really want them just to get a feel for you, because I think this course and its inspiration springs so much out of literally your bones and sweat and blood and soul and spirit. Like, it's so an outpouring of you. So I think that's one of the best ways for people to get a sense of whether this course actually speaks to them and how it might enrich in their lives. So to start, maybe just the first question, like, what is it that inspired you to put together this course and offer it to the world?
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you everybody who's listening for your time and attention. I feel really excited and giddy to have this opportunity to talk about this topic. And I just remember, about 9 months after my first son was born, I was hit with this really sudden wave. I mean, I had been writing my whole life, but I had put it on pause for a while for my dance career, and then for certainly the time that I was pregnant and birthing and the immediate postpartum period, all of that very intimate, raw experience, which requires our entire attention. And then as soon as I had like a tiny sliver of space when London was about 8 or 9 months old, this wave just rushed in, and I literally had an experience in meditation of hearing a voice saying, you need to start waking up in the mornings because a book is coming. And it sounds kind of insane, and I thought it was not a wise thing to actually embark on, trying to get up even earlier after not sleeping much and listen for a book, because this voice had told me to do that. But it felt like a sacred voice, and so I followed. And what came out of that was one of the richest and most fun and satisfying and like resourcing adventures of my life, where I kind of couldn't wait to get up, even though it was painful to get out of bed. I was so tired. But the experience when I actually showed up, Mary Oliver, who just died, I think like just over a month ago, one of her main teachings about being a poet is to keep the appointment. That it is magical and magical things happen, but really it's also very pragmatic, practical, on the ground work. And someone asked her, how did you write so many amazing poems that have spoken so deeply to so many people and literally saved lives? And she said, I just always kept the appointment. So she felt this calling, and she just made sure that she showed up. And of course there were days that I couldn't, because I was too tired or whatever, London was sick or something. But most days I did, just for the sheer curiosity of what would happen if I did. And I was never disappointed. I was always touched deeply, even if I didn't write anything, even if I just got up and sat there in the dark. It was such a sacred time. And some mornings it was very playful and very full of humor and lightness. And sometimes it was heartbreaking, and I got to really touch and articulate and feel as deeply as I needed to about the transition to motherhood and about the challenge of motherhood, and even 9 months later process some stuff around London's birth. So I was really moved by this experience of writing my book. And I don't know where it came from. I mean, the injunction to write it felt like a calling from outside of myself. And like I said, it was just one of the most fun and rewarding and deep experiences of my life. So in a funny way, I want to be that outside calling for women, like, show up. Hey, I'm here, and I want to hear what you have to write. Like, that's what I received from who knows where. And so I want to be that for other women. And then selfishly, I want to hear what other mamas have to say. Because I think mamas are so deep and so wise and so poetic already, because motherhood is just the fabric of daily life, and motherhood is poetic. It's so full of hilarious, ridiculous stories and such heartwarming, like tear-jerking stories. And we just don't have much space carved out to tell the stories or to write the poems, even if they're 2 lines. So this is like a stake in the sand, or a declaration that it's important. And I want to make a space and a time that sends the message to our mama psyches that this is important and it's valuable, and that we're listening to each other. And that if we feel called, we might even want to share what we've written to the greater public, to share this kind of hidden realm if we want to. Otherwise just to share it with each other and with ourselves, and in that way be heard. And that's a medicine in itself. Beautiful. So it's, yeah.
I love how you said, keep the appointment. What I was hearing there is show up, don't give up on yourself, even as you're surrendering so much to the needs of another or a few others, but keep showing up. And the other piece I was hearing there was, whether something actually comes out, any piece of writing or any great insight, it's just the pause, right? In a way, you were just talking about show up and then just pause and see.
Yes.
So that brings me to another question, which is, does one, if one is considering taking this course as a mother, or as someone who is in some form of mothering, grandmother, auntie, any other form, mothering is really at the center of one's life. Does one need to self-identify in a particular way as a writer? Just curious about that.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I've gotten it a lot, and the answer is absolutely not. I'm curious and genuinely welcoming to the whole gamut. I mean, if you're a professional writer and you have a book deadline and this course would help you meet that, that's awesome. And if you are, intimidated by writing and always have been, but also feel this like bubbling up, this is also the place for you. And the cool thing about the virtual course is that you can adapt it to your particular interests and what would serve you most. So I know for some mamas, and for me on certain days, I don't want to make a product. I don't want to make an art product. I don't even, whatever I do make, I don't want to share, or I don't want to be expected to have to create anything. And for those mamas or mamas that are having those kinds of days, you don't have to create. It's just like you said, Miriam, you can just make the gesture of pausing. And I always think of that quote, I don't know who said this, but that prayer is speaking to the divine and meditation is listening. And so it really can be, I think week 2, the theme is listening and voicing. And those are like 2 essential capacities for writing. So mamas could spend the whole 6 weeks just working on this, or, benefiting, not even working on, but benefiting from the space to pause and listen to themselves. Maybe there's a blank page in front of them and they're just listening, and maybe nothing ever even comes out, but the listening itself is beneficial in terms of just giving space.
I love that. So really you're speaking about writing in its almost its freest form, which is to take pause, to listen and to voice.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were speaking about prayer as you were talking about meditation as the listening to the divine and prayer as the speaking to the divine, I was thinking, as I was hearing you speak about keep the appointment and just show up and pause, there's also the piece of then, in a way, from that listening, then speaking from the divine, from that step within, not just speaking to it, but it almost sounds like you're inviting mamas to pause into that well of stillness, and then to see what arises. And from the invitation I'm hearing from you is it's completely wide open. Because we don't know what will arise, right? I mean, when we really dip into that emptiness, we will be surprised ourselves.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly why I think my experience of writing this book and then continuing the practice as much as I can now that I have 2 kids, is that the reason I love it is because it surprises me. It's not like I know what's going to happen and I'm excited for that. I'm excited because I don't know. And the unknown also scares me. So I won't pretend that that's not true also. And I'm sure, if I saw a course like this and I hadn't been engaged in this practice, it might seem intimidating, or I might feel a combination of like excitement and fear, because it does invite the unknown and it does invite deeper aspects of self. But for me, that was precisely why it was so fulfilling, is because I got to hear deeper layers of myself, and I got to hear, on certain mornings it felt like, holy cow, that feels like a really sacred voice coming from I don't know where, but I needed to hear that. And now it's on the page, and that's exactly what I needed to feel well and inspired and connected. And now I can breathe deeply again, and now I can play with my kids again. And I don't know where this thing came from, but here it is. And then other days, it wasn't like that at all. It would be really like my very superficial voice, and I would just need to vent or make up a really funny poem about like all the stupid things in the diaper bag. Like I have a poem that's literally like an exaggerated list of all the things in the diaper bag. And it's pretty funny because it's like, most mamas can relate to like, the plethora of weird things that are in there. So it can, it can really scratch the itch on multiple levels. And I do not want to put any extra pressure or expectations on mamas. Like this is just your space, and it's space for community, but it's also space to claim privacy. Like we're around other humans so much. So this is also like an excuse or a reason or an invitation to say, like, these are my 30 minutes in the day to go do this course because I am enrolled in it. So I'm going to do it.
I was going to ask you about that because when we hear keep the appointment, we often think of maybe the same time every day or a certain amount of time. And I imagine that can be very helpful.
Yeah.
And could be for a particular participant, could be part of putting the stake in the sand.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious about other ways you might have experienced or interpret that keeping the appointment, given that motherhood can be fairly all-encompassing.
Yeah. Well, I love that question. And you sent me a post or a writing that included a quote from Toni Morrison, which I loved. And this woman had shared about, that she'd always heard famous writers say like, set up a writing schedule. So you're writing at the same time every day. And then, it's ingrained in you that that's when you're doing that work and your space is clean and well lit and inspiring. And she was like, I'm a mom. I never, like, how could I be a writer when I don't have a room of my own? I don't have the time and I don't have the mind space even. And then she saw that quote from Toni Morrison, how Toni Morrison started writing when she had an infant and a toddler. And she was talking about she got an idea and she started to write with a pencil on a legal pad on the couch while her infant was sleeping and her toddler was running around. And then her toddler threw up on the page. And she knew that she was going to tend to him, of course. It's not like she was ignoring him, but she actually took the moment to finish the idea. She wrote around the barf. And she finished her idea. And then she knew she could clean the barf off and take care of her baby soon enough, with enough attunement and attention. But she finished her idea writing around the barf. And then this woman who read that quote was forever inspired, like, okay, I can do that. And that's what this course is also saying. It's like, we can be creative. We are being so creative all day long. And all we have to do is like turn little dials throughout the day to pluck the little fruits and put them on the page. And yeah, so my favorite time of day is the early morning, but I can't always do that. And that's not always when ideas come. So certain things I've found certain methods to help. Like when ideas come and I'm with the kids, I just pull my phone out and record it on voice message. And then when I do have space, I transcribe it. But sometimes I'm walking the kids to the park and I'm like speaking a first draft of a poem and it's horrible. It's like not good at all, but the idea is coming. So I don't have paper. I just speak it into the thing. And then later I can do a lot with it when I do have time and space. So there's particular methods for mother writers that I've figured out through trial and error, just by the sheer stubbornness that I want to stay creative because it keeps me feeling alive. And it makes me a happier mom.
It's wonderful. And as I'm listening to you, it sounds like the part of mother's writing means changing our frameworks of what is conducive to writing, and just in a way writing despite or writing anyway, or just finding new versions of what looks like the context to write within. I mean, I'm imagining even someone could participate in the course and actually never even take pen to paper, but once in a while just utter something into the air that is like writing. I mean, it doesn't even need to be pen on paper, although maybe that would help.
And when, I've noticed in certain moments when I'm with my sister-in-law and we're with our kids, or my friends and we're with our kids, mamas just speak in poetry all the time. Like the funniest and most pithy, heartfelt things come out of our mouths and come out of our kids' mouths. Like, because we're trying to talk about reality across developmental stages, and to be able to meet each other and find shared meaning, we have to really contact our hearts and oftentimes have a playful sense of humor. So that to me is what poetry is. It's like speaking straight from our heart and with like full range of playful possibility. And I just think that mothers are so ripe as writers, because I was so I've been writing my whole life, but I used to be so self-conscious it would take me forever to get anything out. And now that I'm a mom, I'm too tired to care that much. So I just write as I can. And I just try to say what's true and say it in a way that either makes me laugh or touches me, or it's what I need to hear. And then I let it go. I just think that there's so much about motherhood that has us like just so ripe to put pen to paper, or just speak to our children in a more poetic way. Maybe that's our goal for the course.
Yeah, and I mean, in a way you say, because the openings are sometimes small, I think we all notice this, there's a distilling quality. It's like when you have a moment it can come through, in a way. There's a beautiful squeeze on just say what's true. You don't have a whole bunch of time to do anything else, and then distill it to its essence.
Yeah.
I mean, I so appreciate the encouragement you're giving to mothers to just both reclaim and then offer their voices, whether it's just to themselves or to the world at large. And not have what could be seen as limitations in the mothering journey get in the way. So, because I do think we're lacking in the world those voices. I mean, on the other end, the beautiful thing is some of the best stuff gets uttered in the quietness of the bedroom, snuggled with the little one, or, under the living room table looking for Lego blocks. There's a beautiful thing about that, is it doesn't have to be out there in the world, and yet as a culture, I do think we could gain a lot by hearing more of the flavors and textures and experiences and insights that come right from the really potent experience of motherhood. So I'm very much appreciating, I feel like you're encouraging a whole bunch of voices to come out. So that's really great.
Yeah, it feels like, I realized at a certain point that I felt so fired up that I was like, oh, this is my activism. And not to push before anyone is ready to, and not that certain voices shouldn't stay in the dark, like, but that I want to hear what other women and mamas are experiencing. And that leads me to say, people don't have to write about motherhood. There will be weekly artistic prompts, and some of them will be about motherhood. And so the content can be about motherhood or not, but it's just it's more where the voice is coming from, that you're a woman who has probably given birth, unless you've adopted, and that you have placed another human being at the center, at least for the first few years. And that's a radical act of surrender. I mean, it's a spiritual practice beyond comprehension to surrender that much to serving another being. And so the level of depth, maturity, complexity, wisdom, humor that comes from a being who's doing that. I mean, fathers are doing that too, for sure, and other caretakers. But there's something about the woman and the mother who's given birth, probably, maybe not. That's that voice I crave, and I think those voices hearing each other and creating community at that depth is a medicine that we, at least in the Western world, could benefit from. Because I think there's a lot of like atomization and isolation of mothers' real voices.
Yeah. Can you maybe, you've given us so much already as far as a sense of what the experience would be, but if you could distill what you imagine participants would come away with, having gone through the 6-week journey with you.
So you'll have teachings that you can download and keep and return to in written and audio form. And these are on 6 different themes you can read about on the webpage that I have found to be core. And they are essential for me in the practice of writing, but completely also metaphors for mothering and just being alive. So it's like voicing and listening and voicing, playing and working, privacy and company. So they're all binaries and like they're in 2 things in conversation with each other, but they're all core to kind of how I navigate my motherhood and my artistry. So those teachings are available forever if you download them. There's like going to be many, 6 weeks, every single day there's an inspirational quote. So you'll have all these quotes. I'm going to send tons of poems that you can either just have or paste or memorize. So if you choose to memorize, I prefer the term learn by heart. You can learn poems by heart, which for me has saved me in the middle of the night when I'm spending hours trying to get the baby back to sleep. To speak poems that I've learned by heart is like such a lifesaver mentally. And you'll have a community that you can touch back into, hopefully some connections that are deep enough that they persist beyond the course. You'll have a relationship with me, and you'll have, most importantly, you'll have a groove in yourself and a habit that the impulse to listen to the deeper voices and actually pay them attention and pay them time and pay them articulation, you'll have a habit that that's valuable. Because the habit we inherit from the outside is that it's not, or that there's not time for it now, maybe later. But I just want to kind of turn that on its head over these 6 weeks, that we recondition ourselves, that there are ways, even if it's 5 seconds here, 10 seconds there, one deep breath and writing down a word, that my deepest voice is not only valuable, but maybe pivotal for how my day of mothering goes. So lots of stuff. And then mostly that, that deep groove internally is what I want to really like wire into us as mamas.
It sounds like it's become such an anchoring force in you. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I used to get so mad. Sorry.
I just love this image of then the writing of others actually nourishing you when you wake up at night as you have poems.
Oh yeah.
In your heart.
Totally. Yeah, and I was gonna say I got so kind of hooked on this experience of connecting that I would get so mad if I set my alarm and tried to get up to write and then the baby woke up with me, or if I slept through my alarm or whatever, I would feel so mad. And now even that has had to get kind of ground away. Like I can't control getting my time in the morning or not. So I just have to keep remembering I can find it, and I can find it in any moment. And especially, I mean, I also just want to create a fabric of women where we can be in touch about it, you know, so it's not just this solo thing.
I just had a memory as you were speaking. I'd completely forgotten about it. My daughter's now 15, but when she was younger, we used to write poems together.
Oh, cool.
I would write a sentence and then she'd write one, and then we'd take turns. And it was sort of a next step from, we used to draw a lot of mandalas together where, you know, she'd do something and then I'd do something.
Cool.
But I was just thinking about that too, is there's something about the pausing in the stillness oneself, and then of course naturally also the art that happens right literally in the middle, not apart from, but in the middle of being with the little one when he wakes up crying. It's also its own version of poetry.
Yes. Yeah, I have one of my poems. It came out of, I was reading a kid's book about space to London when he was 3, and there's this line about like Voyager 1, you know, was launched in such and such a year, and now it has passed these planets, and soon it will be it will move out of our solar system and disappear into deep space. And as I was reading this, I could see London picking his nose next to me, and so I offered him, I said, "Hey buddy, here's a Kleenex." And he was like, "It's okay, Mama, I already pushed the booger back into my nose and it's soon going to disappear into deep space." And I was like, that is hilarious. I have to write a poem about that. So I made this poem about like the deep space inside and the deep space outside. But yeah, there's like such surprising moments where I don't think I'm writing poems, and then all of a sudden it just pops up.
Right. And it's like life. It's life, right? Life.
Yes.
Life emerging in its many expressions.
Yes. And one thing I started to frame for myself is like the difference between poetry and the poetic. Like that the poetic is just, it's like a basic quality of reality. Reality is poetic. And what does poetic mean? It just means, to me, it means resonant, aesthetic. Sometimes it means funny, wholehearted. Like if it's just about, I have to attune to the poetic dimension of reality, and then I start to see it everywhere. And it has these different qualities, but we feel it. It mostly resonates in our bodies at this certain level where we get like goosebumps, or, you know, It's like the feeling of watching a sunset or laughing spontaneously at a good joke. Like that all to me is signs of the poetic. And so I started to just kind of think of like life, reality, motherhood certainly are all poetic. And how can I just tune to that? And then poetry is like little artifacts like, oh, hey, look at the poetry of life. Isn't it awesome? The world is so messed up and so poetic. Yeah, and for me, it's just such medicine for my soul.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Would you be, as we're getting close to our time ending, would you be open to reading maybe one or two of your poems, just to give us
Sure.
a real felt sense of how at least it's emerged through you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
What time? Okay, so we have time. Maybe I'll read two and do the longer one first.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So I have a lot of poems about motherhood and a lot that aren't about motherhood, but this is one that I like to share when I'm talking about motherhood and poetry, because it's literally the first one after I had that thing in meditation that was like, you need to start waking up early and writing poems because a book is coming. And I thought, that's crazy. That sounds fun. I'm going to just try it. And so that was on a retreat. And when I got home from the retreat was the first time. Well, actually, we went straight to my husband's parents' house because it was right before Christmas. And I tried to get up early, and then this is what happened. So it's called Interruption. I love to wake early and sip strong coffee and sit like a queen in the dark and ask my death to reach back and teach me so I can write down what I hear. If I listen with my whole spine, the currents of deep grief and wild arousal wash me to a more original body. So I sneak out of bed early this Christmas Eve and float to the kitchen to percolate in my husband's parents' home, past the blind dog sleeping in her crate, great grandma's bedroom where little girl dreams dissolve even as they form translucently around her in the dark, dry morning air. I come back to our room, triumphant with my mug, set up my cushion, and here, London, 8 months old, pile of sleep squirming, snortling and milk hungry, my husband's hand on his heart to soothe. Backbending and flapping arms that thwack pillow and little protruding belly, stretch that furrows the brow and pooches the lips and makes a tiny tremble through the absurdly adorable body. And I'm called to my first purpose, to feed from my own body, to feel these rivers of simple service that destroy ideas of who I think I am, pull from my bones and pour into his little suckling lips. My desires are silent as I give up writing this morning and lay here instead, my hand petting his hair, everything for the moment effortless, awestruck by death's teaching today. So it didn't go as I had hoped it would, but it was an even greater poetic gift. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, as I'm rolling through the poem with you, I got such an experience of next moment, next moment, next moment, next moment, like really the déroulement, like the unfolding of life, and how we're so invited to tune into what's arising right there, and then not connecting with what was or your idea of what was going to be.
Exactly.
the next arising moment, and then getting into, in a way, the beauty of the culmination of your poem.
That's the thing that like that I get gifted by in that is yeah, that it's just like, let go, Brooke, let go, let go. And then even I remember laying there with him and being like, well, that was a flop. Like, what's this? I thought I was supposed to get up and I'd get poems. And then I was like, wait a second, this is the poem. Pay attention, wake up. All you have to do is write this down. And I was like, oh, okay, wow. Okay, reality is just giving me poems. I have to just listen.
Very nice.
So then, you know, we had also talked about that in this course, and for us mamas, we don't need to expect to write long poems. They don't have to be. Actually, I wrote this poem a few years ago to myself, and I titled it "Instructions to the Mother Writer," and it was just 3 lines. It was because I had fallen off of the practice, and then I was trying to get back on. And so I just opened my journal and I wrote, instructions to the mother writer. Keep it simple, tell the truth, nothing fancy.
Yeah.
And then I just burst out laughing and I was like, okay, I can do that.
Repeat that, it's wonderful.
Instructions to the mother writer. Keep it short, tell the truth, nothing fancy. It's not a haiku, but it has that flavor, I think. Yeah. And so this is just a super short one that I think just popped into my head. And I probably wrote it down thinking that it was going to be a piece of a longer poem, and then I just let it be its own self. It's called The Best Dream. You right now waking up to play the part of love's guts. You right now waking up to play the part of love's guts.
Simple,
so just a little.
Tell the truth, nothing fancy.
Yeah.
Right to the guts of love.
Yeah, love's guts. What mamas are always doing, being love's guts.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Brooke.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me today, and also for having me offer this course. It's like a dream come true, literally.
Well, you know, you as person, and then you as mother and as writer, and then putting this together, just has always felt, from the moment we connected on this, just like such a really wholesome fit to what we stand for at Next Step Integral, which is really about bringing the deepest insights we can access into life, into action, into embodiment, like that, there where really the rubber hits the road, where it matters, where life changes. And so I'm so thrilled to bring this to our community, and communities beyond ours too. So if anyone would like more information and would like to register for the course, you can find those details at the URL theheartofmotherhood.com. The course runs from March 4th, so coming up soon, until April 12th, and will be accompanied by this beautiful, inspiring, lovely Brooke. I can't wait. I'm joining. I'm looking forward to what emerges for me too.
Awesome.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd still like to share before we close?
I don't think so. I feel good. I'm just so excited. I can't wait to see who joins.
Yeah, it always feels like a caravan gathering together with these online courses. So I'll be so curious to see who joins us. I look forward to joining the journey with you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, much love to you, and we will be in touch starting March 4th.
Awesome.
Okay.